Hi guys, and welcome to the Marc the Shark MMA show. Appreciate you guys watching me here on my Twitch channel. And don't forget, please follow me. If you happen to have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free. And also make sure you follow me on my social media accounts, including the Marc the Shark MMA show, YouTube channel, the Marc the Shark MMA show, Facebook channel. My Twitch channel is Marc BJJ Fighter. And my Instagram is Marc_Retorto. And don't forget, it's Marc with a C and not a K. And don't forget to visit the website where you can sign up to be a guest, you can sign up to become a sponsor, or you can shop. Get fabulous hoodies and t-shirts like the one I'm wearing right here. Not too shabby, right? And also you can make a donation. And also don't forget that I also have a podcast that comes out either on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podbean, pretty much everywhere. I have a new episode that comes out every Friday or Sunday, depending on how the week goes. And then I'll be here on Twitch every Saturday, so make sure you watch me every single Saturday on this channel. All right, guys, stay tuned and watch the show and enjoy it.
Guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and hit the alert button so you get updates. And also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This podcast episode is brought to you by Defense Soap. Defend what you have built. Save 15% with the code Marc the Shark MMA Show, used by all jiu-jitsu and MMA athletes to prevent skin infections. This podcast is also brought to you by Audible. Go to www.audibletrial.com/MMA Show, and you get a free audiobook when you sign up for a 30-day trial. This episode is also brought to you by HostGator. Save 60% on your web hosting needs by using the promo code Marc the Shark MMA Show. Again, save 60% on your web hosting needs with HostGator. This podcast episode is also brought to you by Retorto Family Books. If you're interested in great books for your children to read, get books by Christina Retorto. And if you're interested in action, thriller, suspense books, you can get The Cabal, The Saga Begins, or fantasy books like Marcus the Vampire, both written by your host, Marc the Shark Retorto. Again, go to www.retortofamilybooks.com. Also, do not forget to go to the Marc the Shark MMA Show podcast website, the shop for our merchandise. We got t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, hats, and even mugs. Anything you can want with the Marc the Shark MMA Show podcast name on it. And also, please do not forget to go to our website where you can make a donation to support the podcast. All you have to do is click on the donation button. Three. All right, guys, we're back on the show. Today I had a special guest, Deon, Big Smash Clash. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, and yourself?
Good. So where are you from?
I'm originally born and raised in Hugo, Oklahoma, and I moved out to Arizona when I was probably 12 or 11 or 12. So I half my life Oklahoma, half my life in the city. So I came from a farm.
Do you miss where you used to live, or you like where you live now better?
I love the city. I love the lights. I love the commotion. But I go back every year or so to work on the farm. So I don't get to miss it just because I'm going back and forth. And I have like the double life thing going on right now.
Ah, I see. And then, like, going back, like, how did you begin your martial arts? Did you start off with a traditional martial art, or were you a wrestler or a boxer?
No one in my family were fighters. I didn't have any fighting friends at the time. I grew up only playing basketball, soccer, like the traditional sports a kid would play. And when I moved out to Arizona, I discovered wrestling. And so they were doing wrestling in my high school. And at the time, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like WWE type wrestling is what was in my head. And for sure, like I went in and they were wearing like these tight little singlets, and I was like, okay, this is different. But from playing football, it meshed well. So wrestling is my background. I wrestled for 3 years in high school. It wasn't a plan. It was just something that I did to stay in shape and go to college for football. That was my sole purpose with wrestling. And went to college, fell out of love with football, and then I needed to find something just as physical, if not more. I couldn't see myself, sitting in a cubicle doing any of those kind of jobs. I couldn't see myself not playing sports. So I hit up a friend, and then the next thing I know, I was in an MMA gym.
Oh, interesting. So what made you fall out of love with football? Was it that you liked one-on-one sports better, or?
So I started to learn that team sports, they always say you're only as good as your weakest link.
Yeah.
And when I got to college, I learned that politics was huge. I learned that there is a whole underside to college sports. It's not just the best player that plays anymore. It's who you know, how much money you have, and I didn't appreciate that. I didn't like that. I didn't understand. I didn't see the purpose in working hard when the next man next to me was just going to get the same amount of attention, same amount of reps. At least in high school, the best man played. Right?
Yeah.
And so, but it wasn't like that in college. And so then I was like, okay, so all my life I had these big dreams of going to the NFL, and then I finally get to college, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, if this is what football is, then I can't see myself doing it. So, so I got tired of the team sport, and I like how honest one-on-one sports are. If I mess up, it's me. It's not my coaches, it's not my teammates, it's not anything else. It's the best way to find a lot of truths about yourself. And so that also played in it too, with losing the love for the sport. I wanted to test myself as an athlete. And MMA was that outlet. MMA I saw tested me mentally, physically, and then I fell in love with that sport. And so now here I am.
Okay. So when you were in college, you didn't wrestle though. You just
No.
You just did MMA. You just went right to camp.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I would go to football practice and we'd be done at like 3 in the afternoon, and then right after that I would go straight to an MMA gym, and so I was kind of doing like a weird 2 days, and then it turned into me skipping football practice just to go to MMA practice because I didn't have enough energy to get through those sessions at all. So in college, all I did was I played football, and that was it. On the side, I was doing a little bit of MMA training. I wasn't even full time there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming you went to the traditional route, like you did some amateur fights first just to get your feet wet?
Yeah, so when I first got into MMA, I absolutely hated it. I didn't understand jiu-jitsu. I didn't understand striking. I didn't understand – I knew wrestling, but I was getting destroyed by guys smaller than me, and that's when I learned that size wasn't everything at all. That I learned that it humbled me a lot, because coming from football, the biggest guy, the fastest guy, the strongest guy, that's it. Like you don't really need that much more. But I went the traditional route of doing smokers. And I did about like 4 or 5 smokers, and those are just like scrimmages in any other sport. You wear headgear, the little 4-ounce mushroom gloves, shin guards. And I did a couple of those just to see like if I really wanted to do this. And I did. I liked it. I did the smokers. I did well. I got a little bit of a following, getting my name out there through the smokers in Arizona. But that's the route I went. And then my amateur, so this is where it gets kind of interesting. So I did well in the smokers, and I started to understand like the weight cut and eating clean, and because before then I never gave a shit about eating clean. I never cared about what I put in my body. I just knew that I was athletic and I learned fast and I can do it. That's all I had. So with MMA, my first amateur fight, I lost in the first round from an Darce choke. And so that fight, I lost to a guy named Jordan Johnson who fought in the UFC, did really well, now fights in the PFL and is also doing really well. And he was a D1 wrestler, and that's all I knew at the time before I even signed the contract. And at that time, I didn't know anything about doing research. I didn't know anything about studying opponents. All that backstory stuff, I never knew. The only thing I knew is, okay, this is my opponent's name, this is where I sign, and this is the date I need to fight. So I was like, cool, I can do that, right? And I went to that fight, and I just got manhandled, just completely decimated. And it took so much out of me because I started fighting in 2011.
Okay, so you've been doing it now.
Yeah, so I had my first fight like 2013, right? So that's 2 years of just refining the skills that I thought I had, learning as much as I can. So when I got to that first fight, I was like, cool, I'm just gonna blow through everyone. I've been training for 2 years. That's all I've been doing. What can go wrong? And I lost that fight, and it took so much out of me because I was like, okay, so I lost football. I did all this training for MMA just to lose, and I fought for King of the Cage. That's the same organization that Rampage Jackson fought for. I think Ronda.
That as an amateur or as a pro? As
an amateur. That was my first time experiencing anything, the camera, the lights, the crowd, being in a cage with someone else that's trying to hurt you. A lot of people talk about that feeling. I wasn't prepared for any of that. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And so that was my first taste of MMA. And second fight was an amateur level. Same thing. Went up against a hard-nosed wrestler. His name was Joe Gigliotti, who fights up in Phoenix, Arizona at Power MMA. Well, it used to be Power MMA. But Bader is the owner of that gym, and CB Dunaway and a couple other guys. So I go from fighting the D1 prospect in, I think, Iowa. I think Jordan's from Iowa. So very first fight was him. And then the second fight, another badass. And so I lost that fight too by decision. So now I'm getting into my head because now I'm 0-2 as an amateur. I don't know what it means. I don't know what that feeling is to win. And I'm so desperate to win. I'm starting to eat away at myself. So like that little negative voice is like, okay, I lost another fight. I really don't think MMA is for me. Like I'm training hard. I'm eating good. I'm listening to my coaches. I'm doing everything that I possibly can to win these fights, but it just wasn't mixing. And so here comes the third fight. This guy his name was Wesley Pierce, another fighter in Arizona. At the time was the number 1 ranked 185er. So that's the weight I fight at is middleweight. Lost to him by decision. So now I'm 0-3. So now I'm to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty much done with MMA. Like it's not making sense. I'm an amateur. I don't even see myself turning pro. I started pointing the finger at coaches. I started pointing the finger at my gym. I started pointing my finger at myself. And a lot of other like life events were happening at the same time. And then same thing, that voice came back. Well, I gave up football. If I give up MMA, then what? What do I go from there? And the only thing that I knew that I had to keep doing was be resilient, was to, wipe the tears off. As much as I hated going back to the gym the next day and all my friends saying, hey, did you win your fight? What happened? You didn't post anything about it. It just killed it. I hated the sport so much, but for some reason, I was always back in the gym training again. And it got to the point where my mental and my physical body started to disconnect. So my body loved to work out. I loved to push myself, but my mind was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I had to disconnect my mind from everything, and I was just kind of going on autopilot. So I was fortunate enough to find two people that changed my MMA career forever. And that was Mercedes White and Anthony Burchek. And Anthony Burchek is a guy who fought in Bellator, fought in the UFC, fought in Risen. He's been there, done that kind of person. And they took me in under their wing, and they took me to their gym. And I had like a little bit of weird trust issues from coaches because from the first 3 losses, and they would tell them like, oh, we can do this. And I'm so used to the empty promises, and the coach is telling me, oh, Deon, you just get one more fight in, and this will be the one. And every time I take that fight, it's always shortcomings. So I had to put a lot of trust in them. And I told myself, like, if the 4th fight comes and it's still not mixing, and things are just not linking up, then maybe I need to take a step back and, go back to college, do the route that, my mom wants me to do, and just become a doctor or a radiologist tech or whatever the case may be, and just be done with that, go home, work on the farm. The thing is, I didn't want to go back to the farm. I didn't want I couldn't, like, once I got a taste of what was in the city and the opportunities that were offered to me, I just could not. And I couldn't have the body that I have now and just sit on the couch and just not, so I was really just lost. I was in a real weird, dark place. Like, even my friends would give me comments like, when are you going to win? Or like, why do you keep losing? Like, what is it? And so I lost a lot of people, a lot of friends because of that, because of like my MMA career, and people like, oh, I'm not going to buy tickets because it seems like you never win. So like, that's what was told to me as an amateur. And it's not like I had mentors. I had other people to talk to. Like, I didn't trust in anyone. I didn't believe in anyone. So I was like, I'll just deal with the shit on my own. And so once I found Burchek and Mercedes, they took me under their wing, and they molded me into something that I never thought I would be. I've always known that I bring something different to the table. But I had to take that leap of faith into their arms, and they showed me that I needed to understand my worth. They showed me that I needed to understand what exactly I brought to the table. They also taught me to have confidence in myself. You always hear about the stories of people being street fighters, and then they go to MMA to stay out of trouble. I was never a street fighter. I was never an aggressive person at all. I was never into combat sports in general. All I cared about was football. And the only reason why I'm in MMA is because this is kind of like wrestling, kind of like football, but now I get to punch and kick people. So, that's my whole look on it was. And so they broke down my foundation. They built me back up, broke me back down again, built me back up. And I got a fight with them. And at the time, we were training at a park. So we didn't even have an actual gym. So at that time, I'm like, well, if I don't have a cage, how can I win? If I don't have a gym, how can I win? If I don't have a boxing coach with me, how can I win? So what I was used to, I didn't have anymore. So now my trust was absolutely being tested, because I was like, well, how are these new people going to do all this? Like, I've never been proven wrong. I don't really know how to say it. Like, I've never been, I don't really know. Like, I've never been proven wrong when I've had these gut feelings like, oh, these people can't help me. These people, They don't know. They just want me under their wing because they need fighters, right? So they just want me there because they just need someone to charge a membership fee for. They just want me to help pay their electric bill. So that's what was in my mind at the time. And so, sure enough, they came into my life, and then they did all the reconstructing of my mental and my physical, and they promised me that they would give me a fight. So sure enough, within 2 months of me training with them, they got me a fight, and we were training out of a park, and I just had all these nerves. Like, okay, I was getting to the point, and I've heard fighters talk about this. When fighters get to the point where they're okay with losing, then that's when you need to quit. And so I was getting to that weird feeling, like, hey, like if I get hit wrong or if I get put in a submission, it's okay. I've lost before. Like, I'm okay with losing, And I had that thought process. It's like, okay, I have this new fight. I have these new coaches. Everything is new. But in the back of my head, I had so much weird PTSD from losing. That's the first thing that came into my mind. I was going to step foot in the cage. I was going to look at my opponent, and I was just going to crumble, And I used to watch documentaries on Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, the thoughts that they would think before they got into fights and how terrified they were. And that kind of helped too. But, I mean, I can listen to motivational stuff all day, but it never, until you're actually in there and you feel those weird emotions of your own mind going against you, it's weird, So I had that fight, and sure enough, first bell rings, and as soon as we started, I'm squaring up in front of my opponent, and the first thing that I think about is losing. Like, nothing's wrong. I didn't fall. I didn't get hit or anything. As soon as we touched gloves, the first thing that I had in my mind was losing. And at that moment, I had to almost pause time in my mind. And I was like, okay, so to break away from these negative habits, to break away from these negative thoughts, I have to let go, And they always tell you got to let go of shit. You got to get over things to move on. And so I did that. I put all my trust and faith in these two people. And so I'm in that fight. I get a takedown, and then I get a submission, right? So I win, right?
Nice.
You're right. The amount of emotion that I was feeling was ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I found my sport. I know what I'm doing. This is what it feels like to win. And winning is an addiction, right? It's an addiction thing. So once I got that first taste of blood, I was like, okay, so I can do this. Like, it's not me. It's a confidence thing, like it's something else. It's something else. Like, I just have to believe, and that was a guy named Alan Cater, who was from Texas, who comes from, I can't remember the academy, but it's another big name gym. And after I won that fight, I was just on this weird, like, not weird, but I was on this mental high, like I was untouchable, right? So it's still an amateur, so now I'm 1-3. So then they send me out to Vegas, right? So that's like the fight capital of the world. And, I'm still on this mental high, like I can do whatever I want. So then I fought another guy named Ryder Newman, who fights out at Extreme Couture in Las Vegas. Really big gym, a lot of big names coming in and out of that gym, full of elite athletes. And I go out to Vegas, and I fight this guy named Ryder Newman. And what I fought for was Tough Enough, another huge amateur organization in Las Vegas. A lot of big names have come through there also. And the event that I fought for was called Pack the Mac, and it's at the Thomas Mack Center in Las Vegas.
Okay.
They throw UFC event style fights. So when you walk into the arena, there's the cage in the middle of the court, and then there's just seats all the way to the ceiling, right? So once again, like I started thinking about these weird thoughts of losing, and I was like, why am I thinking like this? Like I just came off a win. I did a couple of jiu-jitsu tournaments, won those. So once again, I was just being tested, and I was getting like these weird PTSD moments. And fight day, I come in. Well, they're about to announce my name, and I come out, and my music is playing. The camera's in my face. So now I'm used to it, and that's the kind of person I am. Once I see something once, they always say like the first time you do anything, it's always hard. Second time gets a little bit easier. Third time is a little bit easier. So that fight, I was like, you know what? I'm 4 fights deep. What? I'm telling myself there's nothing that I haven't seen that I've already been hit with before. I lost a majority of my fights by decision. I lost one at the time by submission. So it's like, okay, so now I still have a little bit of a swagger about me. Now I'm like, okay, I can do this. The crowds isn't going to throw me off. The lights aren't going to throw me off. I get in the cage. Everything is fine. And then they call my opponent. I have never heard a crowd so loud since high school football, right? So this guy was a superhero. Like, he was the town superhero of Las Vegas. And they called his name, and all I could just hear was just this loud roar. And that's the first time I fought in an arena like that. And that's what killed me, is knowing, and that I felt so lost. I felt so distant. I felt like I was out there by myself. Like, I had people that were there. I had people that were supporting me, but nowhere near to the point of what this guy had. And so once again, I was tested. I was like, MMA is full of so many things: the weight cut, the fight camp, managing life. I don't have kids, but there's fighter out there that have kids, balancing your spouse, dealing with your friends asking you about your fight. You can't sleep, the hunger pains, you're stressed about your weight. You're thinking about getting knocked out and you getting your arms snapped off and your knees bent inward. These are all things that at least I think about. I can't speak for everyone else.
Right? You're a human.
Yeah, right. So I'm thinking about everything negatively possibly happening to me. So the fight starts, and we're evenly matched. Like, we're going back and forth. And then he gets I throw a kick, right? Because it was just like a panic kick now that I look at it. So I threw a random right kick, fell. I tried to shoot back up, and then he snatched in a quick rear naked choke. That was the end of the fight, right? So now I am 1-4. And same thing, all those thoughts came back to me, because now I'm like, and even then, I've never had sponsorships before until I went out to Vegas. So that was weird too, because I'm like, okay, so people are sending me stuff because they want to see me fight. And I almost feel like I'm doing them a disservice if they're going to send me clothes and send me training gear and send me all these different products just to go out there and lose. So it's like, who's going to sponsor me now? Like, I was having thoughts like that. Like, no one wants to. I've already heard my friends tell me that they're not going to buy tickets because I lose too much. It's like,
wow,
that's
man.
And those people are no longer in my life. Yeah, those people are no longer in my life. Thank God. But like, these are things that I was told. These are things that stuck with me. And so I lost that fight, and then after that fight, I just went on, not like a depressive state, but I was just like, okay, so I've lost again, 1 win, 4 losses, and I'm like, okay, so do I continue fighting? Because like, my resiliency has already been tested a couple times, and I know that same thing. Just as long as I keep showing up, eventually I'm going to hit that jackpot. And so I went back to Arizona, and I just kept training. And then sure enough, they're like, you know what? Let's get you another fight in the Pac-The Mac Arena in Las Vegas. Same place, same time, same date next year. Sure enough, that happened. And I fought a dude named Chris Ruffin, who was another highly active fighter too in Las Vegas, and still is competing to this point. So I fought him, and something was different about this point. Now I spent a lot of time training my mind and less time, training my body. I knew my body could last forever, but what good is the car if you have a terrible driver?
Yep.
So I spent a lot of time working on my mental, and I had another fight. So this is my fifth one. Yeah, fifth one. And this fight was different because I didn't have those negative thoughts anymore. I didn't have those thoughts about losing. I was up in Vegas training with Brad Tavares, who was a UFC 185er,
Okay.
tough as nails. Another training partner is Ty Gearder, who is another 185er who just won his fight in LFA. He's got 3 knockouts. I was fortunate enough to go train with him at the UFC PI building, along with a couple other, like Miles Hunsinger is another guy I trained with, Ryder Newman, my past opponent. I trained with a little bit with him. And that's something that's new to me. I've never trained with an opponent or a past opponent. And to see that and to train with these big name people, the first person I ever sparred with in Las Vegas was Uriah Hall.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, I wear glasses. I can't see anything without. And I just remember seeing another guy wearing black Under Armour top and black shorts wearing UFC gloves. I was like, okay, maybe it's just a guy that's just wearing the UFC gear just because he wants to wear it. So then I get closer, and sure enough, my manager, Mercedes White, was like, you know who you're about to spar? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, you're about to spar Uriah Hall. And Uriah Hall, he had a fight coming up too, so he was fight camp Uriah Hall. And sure enough, he started doing like his little twitchy backspin heel kick stuff to me, and I was like, okay, like this shit's crazy. Like I never saw myself as an amateur. I never believed that I was an amateur. I just knew that I was taking amateur fights. Like I just knew that was the division that I was in. But once I started sparring with these big name guys, then it gave me a weird self-confidence. I was like, okay, so I am the most dangerous person, in the ring. Like my opponents are nothing compared to me. So I had to keep telling myself that because of, all the other stuff in the past I had to go through. And so once I started training with those guys and I was doing good and I could see where I was at, I came back to Arizona, and I just had like this whole new thought process on life. I had this whole new look with MMA. I was like, okay, I know where I'm at, and I'm hanging with the UFC guys. Like I'm not getting blown out the water. I'm neck and neck with these guys. And so they take care of me. They take care of me up in 10 Planet Las Vegas. That's another gym that I train out of. And that's the gym that I am currently fighting out of is 10 Planet Tucson. And
okay.
Yeah, so I'll go up to 10 Planet Las Vegas. I'll train with Casey Halstead, who is my head coach's head coach. And even then, I was going up there and I was rolling with Uriah Hall. Probably the hardest rolls I've ever had was I was rolling with Khabib's one of his brothers.
Oh wow!
Yeah, up in at the UFC PI, and even then, I was like, okay, like sometimes you gotta throw yourself to the wolves just to see like where you're at. And
yeah,
then you on that. But the thing is, I didn't know how much I was worth. I didn't know what I brought to the table, and I didn't know where I was at because I was losing. I didn't understand. Like I didn't get that taste of, this is where you could be, but this is where you're at. So like it was smoke and mirrors for me. And so when I went up to Vegas, it really changed me as a fighter and with the confidence. So then I had that fight in Vegas, and I won that fight in 30 seconds.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So do you think that maybe it was just the time factor, like you just needed that amount of time between that fight and the other fights just to get your skill level up, perhaps?
I think
or do you honestly, think it was all mental?
I think it was 100% mental. I think that I'm so glad that I lost to Jordan Johnson, Joe, Wesley Pierce, Ryder Newman, because those guys are still tearing up shit now. So I always tell myself, I've already fought the best, at least in my weight class.
Yeah.
of course, there's people in the UFC that I haven't met. You know, there's people fighting all over the world that I haven't met yet. But at least for me, I really now, like, if I could redo all those fights, I feel like it would be such a huge difference in the way. But the thing is, I had to lose. Now that I think about that, like, that was my destiny. Like, I had to see the best, test myself, rebuild myself, go to Vegas, change my whole thought process about myself.
Yeah.
To the person I am today.
So how'd you do after you won that other fight? Did you have a couple more fights after that one?
Yeah. So what I did before that last fight in Vegas, I was bored and I signed up for a Muay Thai fight, and I won that fight by TKO in 40 seconds. And that was up in Phoenix, and they gave me a belt. So I got that after that little break, and that's what my manager does. She signs me up for jiu-jitsu tournaments, then Muay Thai, then MMA, and then back to jiu-jitsu. So like those three different revenues or avenues is what I'm in still to this point. So yeah, I do believe it was 100% mental. And I just had to get a taste of what I could be, and then I fell in love with it more.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of remind me of, but the guy's not an MMA fighter. You ever hear about jiu-jitsu? Because you do jiu-jitsu tournaments. Keenan Cornelius. He's a
That
top
name sounds
level.
familiar.
He's like one of the top world jiu-jitsu players in the world. Like, he's been on the top since, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And he had the same thing. Like, he never won a tournament until he became a purple belt. And then, like, he found a nice place to train in Baltimore. And then he did what no one else ever did. He won 4 major tournaments in the same year as a purple belt. The Worlds, I think the Europeans and the Pan Ams and the Brazilian Nationals, I believe, at purple belt. And ever since then, he's been on top. You know?
I think the people that are thrown through the ringer and still get up, I think that's like, some people have to do that. You know, some people do it their first time, and right from the get-go, it's just straight to the top. But then there's those guys that literally just have to get torn to shreds, put themselves back together, and then there's just this whole new beast.
Yeah.
You know? But even in high school wrestling, I lost every match in high school until my senior year, and then I went to state.
Oh, wow. Yeah, see?
So I think that's just me, I guess. I just have to I have to taste all the worst sides of everything before I can get to the sweet stuff.
Yeah. And you gotta keep your to look at it from a different point of view. A lot of MMA fighters, they don't have a perfect record, man.
No.
Even the guys that make it to the UFC championship level, you know, they'll have, like, let's say 17 wins, they may have 10 losses, you know. Not everybody's like Khabib, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
20-0, whatever the hell he is. But, you know, everybody, you know, it just sucks that you had to go through all that, lose, win, lose, you know. Same thing happened to me, you know, when I used to do jiu-jitsu tournaments. I'd win a couple, lose a couple, and then, you know, that's just the way it is. But not everybody's got that. I was never, like, had that mentality, like, where I'm super athletic. I always had to work for it, you know. So it is very mental. Now, do you think the big difference between your first training camp, first set of trainers, and your second set is that they helped you with the mental aspect, or was there other stuff involved, like the physical aspect of training?
Learning how to take care of my body helped a ton too, because I've always seen myself as a workhorse. And I couldn't get the best training because I was always, you know, like, I had little dings there and little pains and strains and jammed this and twisted that. So learning how to recover properly and take care of myself properly also helped a ton. And then just the way that those guys took care of me, and they pulled me in. There was no big ego testing, because, a lot of gyms will see bigger guys and then they'll assume that these guys are just headhunters, right? Like it's a thing. Like you see the biggest guy in the gym, he must be an animal, And so as me being that big guy in the gym, I was a chew toy. Also, in the beginning of my MMA career, I was a chew toy for a lot of the guys that were already in the UFC. So like Chad Griggs, who fought in Tucson. That's one of the guys that I looked up to because he was a big guy and he fought. Another one of my training partners was Joey Yeager, another guy who fought in the Bellator. Ed West, another guy who fought in the UFC. George Roop, another guy that fought in the UFC. So those are the guys that when I first started, those are the guys that I tried to throw myself into, and I learned that I was like, no, I'm nowhere near those guys' level. But in my head, no one didn't say, hey, Deon, you can spar with these guys, you can train with these guys, but don't take it to heart because they're way more advanced than you, like they have experience on you. But at the time I was like, damn, why can't I keep up with George Roop, who is 100 and maybe 56 pounds on a good day when he's fighting, and here I am 275 pounds and I'm getting thrashed by this guy. So I'm like, I don't understand. I don't get it. So yeah, definitely those guys in Las Vegas pulling me in, putting me under their wing, and showing me what I can and cannot do. And the problem is having training partners. So all the guys that I train with in Vegas are around my size, and they're all destined or on the way or already in the UFC. So knowing that, that's my breed, I always thought of myself as a wolf surrounded by sheep, especially in my early days. But now that I'm surrounded by other people, we all have the same mindset. And there's that saying where they tell you, to surround yourself around the people who you ultimately want to be. And so I got a taste of that, and I thought I loved MMA, and now I'm head over heels for it.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah, and then there's also that saying, iron sharpens iron, right?
Oh yeah. Right. So see, there is that, and unfortunately, that's all I was doing is getting sharpened. But I was never, reaping the rewards of going through all that. But yeah, even and on top of that, so a bunch of like good stuff started flowing in after I won that last fight in Vegas. I had another fight for M1 Global, and those are the guys. I don't know if you've seen. They're Russian based, but they have the knights that fight in armor in the cage, and sometimes they'll throw like 3-on-3 MMA fights. They do weird stuff like that. Not in the United States, but back over there. And so I signed for my first pro fight earlier this year in April for them, and same thing. I got all these sponsorships, and now they're paying me more money. So that kind of came into play because I was like, okay, now they're paying me money that I'm already kind of spending because, it's like, cool, you give me $100 here, I'm going straight to the grocery store and I'm getting whatever I want,
Yeah.
So all that money was given to me, and it kind of freaked me out, because I was like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to do this. Like, I signed the contract. I'll fight for that money, but if you're going to pay me anything on the side, I mean, please just don't, because I already have enough nerves going on as it is. And so I had that fight in April, and same thing, same thought process. I started cornering some fighters. I have some fighters under my belt now. Seeing the other side of the cage also helped a ton with my MMA career. I was always the guy on the inside of the cage, so I never experienced watching someone you train with, someone that you care deeply about, go in there and potentially hurt themselves. So that was like a weird feeling for me. But I went out there in April, same thing, same mindset, went to Vegas, hung out with the boys, trained with all the Hawaiians and Russians, and came back to Arizona, fought for M1, and I won that fight minute 30 seconds for Kimura. And I was my first.
Okay. So, see, it
So-
seems like when you win fast, right?
Oh yeah, see, that's kind of fighter I am. I view myself as a pressure fighter, but I just want to do my business, get in and get out. You know, like I've had all these long fights as an amateur, and now I'm just like, okay, I just want to cut to the point, get in there. If you're not going to give me a submission, then I'm just going to try to decimate you and drown you from there on until something gives. But I'm not a slow cooker kind of fight. I've never been. Wrestling, I've never been. Football, never been. Football is not really a slow sport either. But yeah, so when I win, it's fast. It's quick.
And do you have any other fights coming up?
I don't have any fights coming up right now. I have a jiu-jitsu fight coming up November 23rd here in Arizona for a 205 belt.
Oh, is it submission only? Like submission only? Sub?
I don't think it's sub only. I've done a couple sub onlys, and I think I favor those more than the jiu-jitsu tournaments where it can go to decision. I like that whole thought process on I have to finish this guy, otherwise. I like knowing that the only way you can get out of a fight is submitting someone, because then you're both trying to go for stuff. Like it's and I like fights.
This one's for some type of grappling belt, but there's points involved then.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You follow IBJJF rules, or you
no?
is it no gi?
Yeah, no gi. I could never do gi. Never. I've tried it. I tried it one time. I never put on a gi since then. So, but yeah, this will be no gi. The rule set is, I want to say it's just like IBJJF.
Okay.
It's Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. You still there?
All right, guys, we'll be right back, but first a word from our sponsors.
During World War II, I was in prison in a Nazi camp. I died there, or so I thought. Instead, I became a creature of the dark world. Now I fight to protect my daughter. I am Marcus the Vampire. The book is now available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com and RetortoFamilyBooks.com. All right, guys, we're back on the show. We had a little technical mishap, but we're back on. I got Deon's Big Smash Clash back in the Shark Tank here on the show. And he was going over his experiences as he started out as an MMA fighter and how he conquered his self-doubt. And now he's like on a big winning streak. And give us a little bit more information on that because you got an upcoming grappling match. You're fighting for some kind of belt, I believe you said?
Yeah, the Rise of the Prospects 205 championship belt here in
Okay.
Tucson.
Where is it?
In Tucson, Arizona. It's based in Tucson. It's Chris Carriaso, another dude who fought in the UFC. That's his little organization that he throws here in Tucson.
Oh. Is it going to be streamed on the internet at all, or?
I don't believe so. Usually one of my coaches will stream my events live straight to my Facebook fight page.
Oh, okay.
It'll be streamed on my page.
Ah, yeah. When is that event?
November 23rd.
Oh, you got to hit me up with that link, man. When you get that, when you put it on your Facebook, so I can send it out to everybody. You know, I can put it on my Facebook page too. Yeah. So you currently do not have any upcoming MMA fights. It's just this one grappling match.
Yeah.
And, if you win, do you get? I'm assuming you get a belt, but do you get any cash prize at all? Or
I think there is. It's off of ticket sales, and I think there's like maybe like a little $200 bonus with the win, and then you get a belt too.
Oh, okay, that's great.
That's gold belt. Yeah.
So what do you plan to do after that? Are you going to do another tie match because you won a belt in that?
So the next goal is to get another MMA fight before the end of the year. If not, it'd be the first thing in the beginning of 2020 after this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to keep training hard and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, switching up the avenues, like I was saying earlier, like I bounced from jiu-jitsu to Muay Thai to MMA, back to jiu-jitsu. There's actually a little thing that my gym is throwing together as a 5-man team that a lot of the schools are doing. It's an accumulative of 800 pounds. So you can have up to 5 members. You just can't exceed that 800-pound limit. And that's something that I'm also in the hat for in another jiu-jitsu thing.
So I forget it's going to be like a 5, like a team, and you compete against another team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like
Something like that in Europe not too long ago. I forget what the event was called.
Yeah.
He fought for Uriah Faber's team.
Yeah.
I just can't think of the name of the event. They got so many events going on now.
Yeah, the first time I actually heard about it was last year. Sarah McMahon was on a team. Well, she was on 10th Planet, I believe, and she went up against another gym in Japan. And that's when my coach was like, yeah, they're starting to do these 5-on-5 like wrestling meets kind of tournaments. And I was like, okay. And then they were telling me about like you can't exceed 800 pounds. And I was like, okay, that's cool because you can have 2 guys that make up most of the weight, and then you can have the smaller guys. So you can be strategic with who you put on your team. The last one I watched, what's his name? Gordon Ryan.
Yeah.
And he just manhandled a team by himself. So
I know.
It's like,
yeah, I think that was the one he beat Josh Barnett in with a triangle choke.
Yeah.
And that guy is no slouch, man. That's a big
not at all.
Wrap your legs around,
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to be watching? I think the ADCCs are coming around the corner. Are you going to be watching that at all, or?
I might. I'm not too into watching ADCC those matches for some reason. Weirdly about it, I like to follow Kickboxing Glory.
Yeah, I used to follow kickboxing years ago. Yeah, more into
never did kickboxing match, but
yeah,
it just interests me to watch. But like I said, I also like to watch no gi too. Can't do gi worth a damn, but no gi stuff I'll watch all day.
I think you could do the gi, you just don't like it.
I think I could too, but I was just so lost in the sauce. With the grips are different, the positioning is different, the timing is different. The no gi world compared to the gi world. Some people may say differently, but I think it's two completely different universes. They're similar in very, very small ways, but other than that, gi is a different breed of hand strength, grips.
Yeah,
holds.
you have.
Yeah, so it was funny because the first gi class I ever took, I only wore the jacket. I didn't wear the pants, and I was still having. Yeah, exactly. And I still had a ridiculous time trying to white belts. I was a white belt at the time, but I came back. I had the wrestling background, the football background, and I was an amateur fighter. So I thought I had more than enough. Clearly did not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it weird that some people are like really they just love gi and they can't stand a no gi, and then you get guys that just love no gi and they can't stand the gi. I kind of like both. I like both.
Yeah, it's like, do you like beer or do you like hard liquor? It's like,
yeah,
both are fun eventually. I mean, it's just your taste, like what draws you into it. And I think if I was introduced to gi first, when I my early days, I think I would have had more of a liking to it.
Yeah.
But the first thing that was thrown in my face was just no gi stuff, so I just took after that.
Now, in terms of, I'm assuming you watch professional MMA fights, though.
Yeah.
Like the UFC and stuff like that.
Mm.
And which organization do you follow more to UFC than Bellator, or do you watch the PFL, or what do you prefer?
I've been heavy with PFL.
Okay.
UFC and PFL, the two ones that I watch predominantly. I'm also in Bellator, but PFL is probably my favorite to watch because, like I was saying, with the sub only, you got two guys that know the only way you can get out is if you finish. And I like how the PFL is set up as well. If you want to win or you want to get those points to advance, you have to finish. You can, and there's decision fights, and you get like 1 or 2 points depending on how the fight went. But at least from what I've seen, is 3 is the largest amount of points that you can get off of a finish. So you have two guys that are just trying to go balls to the wall, just want to get that finish so they can advance to the tournament. Of course, the $1 million payout is there too. So
have you thought about trying to get into that with maybe next year or the year after?
I was looking at.
There's experienced guys on there, but some of the guys are like, I don't know, and they didn't seem to have too many fights on the belt.
I was confused not too long ago, a couple months ago actually. I was confused that Bellator would only sign seasoned pros. I understand, and I'm a brand spanking new pro, and I understand that there's levels to it. But at least what I had in my mind is Bellator only signed seasoned professionals, right? And even in the UFC, you'll see their UFC record, and then you'll see their MMA record, which is huge, right? So same thing. I was like, okay, the UFC only signs seasoned pros, or you go to the Dana White Contender Series and win that too. The PFL is another one. I thought, okay, well, maybe these guys just have huge professional records. And I see the PFL as UFC athletes, but they're just in the PFL. They're just in a different federation. But that wasn't the case at all. Bellator signs brand spanking new pros. Risen signs brand spanking new pros. PFL has brand spanking new pros. And that's something that I didn't think that I could get onto unless I built my resume a little bit more. But now that I know that, that is something I definitely wanted to pursue. Either the UFC, just because it's the UFC, but PFL predominantly because a lot of those guys I train with up in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would think, that big payout would be a big motivating factor. Because even if you win let's say you got into the UFC and you won the belt, within 2 years. when you fight for that belt, you're not getting $1 million.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Now, I don't know how much they pay the guys that are like the runner-up. I'm assuming they get paid even if they're not getting to the
So
final.
the PFL, to my understanding, you sign to the PFL and then you get a monthly check. So even though you're not fighting, you're still getting paid as if it was a full-time job. Versus the UFC, I mean, you can still make money off of endorsements and sponsorships and showings and trainings here and there. But at least in anyone that I've known that's in the UFC doesn't receive a monthly, thank you for signing to the UFC, here's a wellness check. So that's another thing that I liked with PFLs because, I didn't want to be the guy that had to fight every month just to, put food on the table. I didn't want to be the guy that just had to fight just because I was low on money. I liked that they had a season, but you would fight maybe once or twice a season. So out of that 12-month span, you're still getting paid every month.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I mean, I can make, if they pay me $2,300, then for sure you can make that stretch, depending on how you are. But like you said, you fight for a belt, you take $70,000 home, you got to pay $20,000 worth of fees, and you got $30,000 worth of bills, and whatever the case may be. And really, you're not getting that much money, and you're the champion. So there's Conor McGregor champions, and then there's Demetrius Johnson champions. The money it's super different. So that's another thing that I hear is all the money is overseas when it comes to MMA. That I've learned, at least. But yeah.
Now, who like do you aspire to be like? That's like a professional MMA fighter.
Do
you like?
I have a couple. Matt Hughes, I've always favored. Gray Maynard, I always favored. Anthony Burchak, my head coach, I favored. Tyron Woodley, I liked. Of course, Khabib and his grindy style. But if there's someone that I try to emulate in my own game, it would probably be Tyron Woodley in a mix between him and Tyron Spong, who is a K1 back in the day with Overeem and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great. Now, what are your thoughts about Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal fight that's coming up? I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, if I had to pick right now, I would definitely probably put my money on Nate.
Yeah,
I have some weird feeling that as durable as he is, and even in that last fight, he was getting hit a couple times. I was like, okay, this might be it for Nate, but he still came back. He did it with Conor McGregor. I believe that he won both of those fights too. But if I had to put my money on it, I'd put Nate. But I would love to watch Jorge Masvidal win for sure.
Yeah, he's great.
I really don't want either one of them to lose because I like them both, and I really don't like that they're fighting each other. But they're two badasses and they're two superheroes in my mind.
Yeah, and the thing about them is they're not, they got mutual respect, but they're not on the same team. And then, are you watching the UFC tonight with Stevens?
No, who's fighting tonight?
Well, the head card is Stevens versus Yair Rodriguez, and then you got Carla Esparza versus Alexa Grasso. So
I have Carla, and then I would go with Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Between those two, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Carla's a heavy wrestler, and she's 10th playing, or used to be one of the. I don't know what she is now, but and then Rodriguez, his dynamic is so weird and accurate at the same time. And then with Jeremy Stevens, See, I like these guys. I like their style, and I like the guys that come forward, like a Justin Gaethje. I like guys that are elusive, like Izzy. So it's hard for me to pick between those two, because. But I mean, yeah, definitely Yair though. Definitely Yair. I like his style a lot more.
Yeah, he's a very unique, very unique style. Very unorthodox.
When he got that like weird ass elbow.
Yeah.
On was it Korean Zombie? I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, and he was like, yeah, I was training that in the gym. And I was like, who at what moment was like, hey, in your next fight, I want you to do this. I want you to roll your head down to your opponent's crotch and then throw your elbow straight to the sky. That's what we're gonna do. Like I just don't understand where and why that would be a thing to throw. But it's MMA, so I mean I guess you could literally land everything, and he's evolving. The sport's evolving, so maybe we'll see more of those. Or you could do like the whole right out the gate flying knee from across the cage, like Masvidal. I mean, that's a thing too. So, yeah, you see fighters make up a move, and then you see a lot of other people try to emulate. Like the Conor McGregor, the wide stance, and it's almost like a karate hop, like coming forward and backwards. You see a lot of people try to emulate that now. With the linear kicks and walking out with your hands straight out like a John Jones style. You see people try to emulate that too. So, I mean, it's cool to see these trendsetters of attacks in MMA.
Yeah.
So.
Now, when you fight, are you more like take the type, like a ground and pound type guy, or are you more of like a striker? I think you're ground and pound.
Yeah, I always tell myself that every fight I go into, I always tell myself I'm just going to let my hands go. I'm going to show off my striking. Every fight I get into, I throw it out the window and I go straight to just heavy takedowns, heavy ground and pound, and I look for submissions. And that's what that's all we really train on too, is when I get someone to a position that I want to be in, then I just capitalize on all their mistakes. Striking, I mean, I think I'm real honest with myself. My striking, at least from my eyes, I think I could improve so much more. Obviously, the groundwork is my strength, but I've always wanted to be like a leveled fighter. I didn't want to be just like a strictly ground kind of guy, and then when the fight is standing, I'm just stuck in mud.
Yeah.
But at least what I've been told from training partners and stuff, that my striking is good. But I know that where my striking is, and I like to size myself up with people that are at the top, because eventually that's where I want to be. So definitely I am a ground and pound kind of guy, but I'm always looking for submission. So even when I do get a takedown, I'm not going to spend much time just trying to beat people up. I'm just trying to snap arms off and take something from them.
Yeah. And you're doing all these different type of combat events, like the jiu-jitsu, the Thai boxing, and MMA. Have you thought about doing like any like Golden Glove competitions where it's just strictly boxing, or?
I've had some talk with coaches about doing a kickboxing.
Like American style or like Thai boxing?
Thai boxing.
Okay.
But it's kind of weird for me, because when I like doing those different sports, but then when I do a Muay Thai fight or a kickboxing fight, I go into my MMA fight thinking that I'm a stand-up guy, because that's just what I did last, So I'll find myself wanting to stand up more, and then I'll try to abandon my wrestling, the stuff that got me there. And so as much as I like switching from sports to sport, jiu-jitsu and MMA mesh well. Jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai do not.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now is, okay, I could go do a Muay Thai fight and then go sign up for an MMA fight in 3 months. And now all of a sudden I think I'm this world-class Muay Thai fighter and I've never wrestled a day in my life. And that kind of messes with me in MMA, me personally. So, you know, I'd rather want to stay in MMA and only do things that are going to complement that.
Mm.
The Muay Thai stuff and the stand-up stuff is usually things that I'll do if I'm bored, or if I'm just like, you know what, I just want to see where my stand-up is with someone else, or I just want to get my hands warmed up. I'll do stuff like that.
Mm.
But I definitely don't like to stay in kickboxing for a long period of time and then switch it up at the last second for an MMA fight. It's either one or the other. Like the whole
Yeah.
year I'll devote to jiu-jitsu. The next year I'll devote to MMA.
Now, do you currently have sponsors now that you like to mention on the show here, or?
Yeah, I have a Knowledge Tribe, who is one of my clothing brands based out in California. Fight Back CBD, Austin, Texas. They keep me all healed up, especially in between fight camps. And I'm currently taking CBD daily. Helps with all the whatever brain trauma that I may have or don't have, the joints, the dings, the bruises, the cuts. It all helps with that. And then I have Oral IV is another sponsor here. And then I have Garden of Life.
Okay.
And they send me all their supplements and things of that nature. I also have another sponsor, War Tribe, who is predominantly gi, but they also have a lot of rash guard stuff and no gi stuff. So they keep me with the
Yeah,
best
that,
gear.
that sounds familiar, that brand, actually.
Mackenzie Dern is their
Big
poster girl. So
okay, yeah.
their big name.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're currently still looking for more sponsors, obviously, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you market yourself? How do people get in touch with you? They get in touch with you with your Facebook page, or do you got a website set up?
Yeah, they can either go to Facebook, type in Deon Big Smash Clash, and you'll see my fight page. I'm also on Instagram, and it's just Deon Big Smash Clash. And that's about it. Those are my two social medias that I use heavily.
Okay, that's good. And then you said you got people that you train now as well, right?
Yeah, I have a couple of amateur fighters.
Do any of them have any upcoming matches that you like to let everybody know about?
I have one of my 145ers, Marcos Gallegos, who has a fight November 11th for Tough Enough out in Las Vegas. And then I have another fighter, Andrew Slater, who is one of the purple belts here, who will also be fighting out in Tough Enough same day.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. And then what I like about the interview that we have is you were telling everybody your frustrations.
Oh yeah.
The mental challenges, and I think that's kind of good for everyone out there. If there's any other MMA fighters that are just getting started, for them to hear how you went through that and how you conquered it, and now you're, it seems like you're on a win streak. I think that's kind of inspirational. I think that's very good. I think you should be proud of yourself, because now people can say, all right, if I go in and I lose, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has that resiliency to come back and keep trying and trying and trying like you do, because I think that everything is all mental. And I think that is the one thing that I think the martial arts can give a person, is that confidence, and then teach them how to be resilient and to keep marching forward. And then that, in my opinion, that helps people translate not just on the mat or in a cage, but in their own personal life.
Right. Yeah, you need loss. If you don't lose, you'll never evolve. And that's just how it is. I mean, winning is nice. Anderson Silva said it the best: when I win, but when I lose, I don't. At least when I win, I don't lose. I don't learn anything. You just know what what got you that win. That's not going to push you to the next fight, because now people are training against that. However you won, there's someone watching you, and they're making a blueprint to ultimately defeat you. So when you lose, you learn things that, okay, maybe I won't do this next time, and then you're better prepared for the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. So for everybody who's out there listening, I mean, you can learn a lot from Deon. I mean, you are, I think, in my opinion, they should be looking up to someone like you as to, someone like Conor McGregor. I mean, everybody like says, "Oh, I want to be like this star or that star." I think you have a real interesting story. I think it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
And talking about it, and then hopefully we get to have you again, like in the future, maybe a couple weeks before your next MMA fight. Definitely send me the link to after you have that grappling match. I like that. Okay. I like to watch that and put that on my Facebook page. And then, it was great having you. I hope to see you again. Everybody, we'll be back after the short break. But, Deon, it was great having you on the show.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right, guys. This week's episode is done on a live show. But if you happen to be listening to this in the podcast format, keep listening because there's more content to follow. All right, guys. See you guys next week.